Welcome to the Indigenous Vision newsletter, audio edition for fall 2024. Indigenous Vision, People, Culture, and Land. To learn more about us, check out our website, indigenousvision.org, and follow us on Instagram, Indigenous Vision Media. Contents, page 1. Traditional ecological knowledge-led researchers devised new method to find contaminants in environmental stressor and susceptibility of disease study. Using TEK to monitor environmental stressors and chronic wasting disease. Page 4. The Beaver Lodge Food Forest on Onondaga Land. Keep up to date on the latest projects to clean up invasive species as we prepare garden space and work to protect the stream that runs through the property. Donor and ally Phyllis Rodriguez helps change the world with a 24-acre donation and funding. Page 7. Sharing stories through the Blackfoot Place Map. Take a journey from Alberta to Texas, right from the comfort of your home with Souta, as she weaves together the water and habitat management model. Page 9. Bear Gulch Visitor Center in the works, opening in June 2025. A historical summer of Blackfoot women gathering, leading to a one-of-a-kind space. Page 10. Making our presence known in Las Vegas, Nuuvi Land. Community events led by Indigenous women, beading circles, and self-defense. Page 11. Community outreach and development of a webinar series on the Yavapai-Apache Nation Environmental Code. An exciting relationship growing. Page 13. Funding, donations, cultural humility, and IV media. With our 10-year anniversary on the horizon, our future is looking very bright and as busy as ever. Page 1. Traditional ecological knowledge-led researchers devise new method to find contaminants and environmental stressor and susceptibility of disease study. Featured photos from left to right. Souta and Selena record stream data sitting on the banks of a stream during daylight. Next photo, the target species, a mink, standing in a stream on top of logs. Next photo, a group shot, people and dogs, standing on a hill with mountains in the background. Michael Little Eagle and Sully, Amanda Ott, Niall Richards, Michael Lovero, Working Dog Frost, and Souta Calling Last. Last photo, featuring a target scat sample next to a nickel to compare the size, laid on top of a rock. End of photo spread. On par with her continued historical contributions to the wellness of land, culture, and people, Souta Calling Last has successfully integrated Blackfoot, Kainai, and Blackfeet, TEK, into the Environmental Protection Agency Quality Assurance Project Plan documents. It's a first for the EPA, and it is a clear example of honoring land, Indigenous knowledge, and the interconnectedness of all. The project assists in protection of the harvester, the cultural use plants, animals, and places, in monitoring climate and human-contributed stress, contaminant impacts that may contribute to spread and susceptibility of wildlife diseases like chronic wasting disease, CWD. Environmental Cultural Protection, Reflections from the Field, by Dr. Niall Richards, Environmental Stressor and Contaminant Project Team, Working Dogs for Conservation Forensic and Field Specialist. For the past 3 years, we have worked with conservation detection dogs who have been specially trained to find mink and otter poop. This past year, we also collected some soil samples. Poop is full of useful and important information about the being that deposited it, and it is a very private, non-invasive way of learning more about the animal in real time while they go about their daily business, without us ever having to poke and prod them or otherwise come into contact with them, which does not make them happy. That's important because a lot of these animals, mink included, have a reputation, at least with a lot of field biologists and toxicologists, for being shy and challenging to capture for a procedure like a blood draw. In each poop sample, we are looking at genetics, species confirmation, individual, and sex. Species just confirms to us that the dogs are doing their jobs, and we use individual and sex information to learn about long-term occupancy of a site and gain deeper understanding of exposure patterns. But also, we want to see whether or not certain contaminants are present. That can tell us a lot about the health of the occupied habitat and the quality of the water for that animal and other residents, including people. The challenge we face with poop samples is that depending on the information you want, you might have to store the sample in a paper bag or glass jar, and you might need a certain amount of poop for a particular kind of analysis. It could be at least 1 gram, the weight of a regular paper clip, or a lot more. If we know at least which individual deposited which poop sample, we can sometimes pool them together to achieve the needed sample volume. Luckily, we have found that mink poop lends itself very well to genetics analysis. We have also discovered that in mink poop you can detect presence of heavy metals, some of which are naturally occurring, and in human inputted contaminants like flame retardants, not to be confused with fire retardants, and pharmaceutical personal care products. But just because you can detect a type of contaminant in poop, it doesn't mean that it will be present in all environments sampled. So we are having to think very carefully about what might be present at each site, and how that presence might or might not impact on the animals and people that dwell and subsist from there. Page 2. Photo description. A few deer standing on a grassy side slope. Several brushes and shrubs around. Because it is also important to note, a particular type of contaminant can be present at very high levels in an area and only cause harm to some of the organisms that draw from the land, because their usage determines their exposure to that contaminant. Similarly, a contaminant can be present at very low levels and cause more chronic, sustained harm based on frequent usage, or because a particular type of usage at that area predisposes users to much higher levels. Context is everything, especially across a vast expanse of land like the reservation. Sometimes the presence of a particular type of contaminant primarily tells us the kind of input to that area, which in turn helps us identify the source, location. Often referred to as forever chemicals, we are also considering presence-absence of PFAS. We found and worked with a lab in Colorado, asking them to adapt their established method in soil samples to mink poop samples. In May of this year, a method was developed for us, and earlier this autumn we collected both mink poop and soil samples from several different areas to assess what mink poop samples can tell us, compared to soil collected from the same place. Although we are looking at presence-absence, it is important to note that there is a known threshold above or below which detections fall. This is all very much a first of its kind. Further notes about the different types of analysis. Genetics. For over a decade, Working Dogs for Conservation and now Indigenous Vision have worked with a lab in Missoula which has, as far as we know, the only capacity nationwide to identify mink to species and to individual and sex level. This capacity was actually developed at the behest of Working Dogs for Conservation as part of the original pilot work into mink and otter poop that was done in the Missoula area, on the Bitterroot and the Blackfoot and the Clark Fork rivers. This capacity helps us follow individuals at a same location over multiple years. We are awaiting some last remaining results, then we'll have species, individual, and sex level information from 3 years. From that, we can look at occupancy and estimate population density. While the dogs were searching with their noses for their target scat, mink and otter, we accompanying humans also collected poop that caught our eye and had it genetically analyzed for co-occupancy and biodiversity. Photo. Michael and Souta investigate with frost weights. 2 people and a dog are on the edge of a stream, crouched down, collecting samples. Also at these sites were coyote, raccoon, long-tailed weasel, short-tailed weasel, yellow-bellied marmot, muskrat, red fox, among others. We are also looking at their exposure levels contrasted against their diet and likely interactions with water to give fuller context to the mink poop findings. Heavy metals. Some are naturally occurring, others are not. The trick is figuring out where and why some inputs are not just from natural sources. We have metals results back and are actively discussing with the head of the lab and the head of technician to properly contextualize the levels of the different elements seen in the poops and what exactly that means for their prey and for the people they share those places with. Pharmaceuticals. Our thinking about looking at pharmaceuticals in these samples is evolving. We just had a discussion with a new lab partner at LSU, where we were offered the possibility of looking for health biomarkers in the poop in tandem with very carefully and strategically selected contaminants. A screenings list containing various pharmaceuticals was originally offered to us. And, to be sure, various products including steroids, anti-diabetic meds, antibiotics, antidepressants, bee blockers, contraceptives, lipid regulators, and painkillers affect the aquatic organisms exposed to them. Page 3. But this list primarily contained drugs of abuse, example opioids, and our new partner highlighted that compared to something like caffeine or Tylenol, those drugs are likely to be present at a significant amount. So again, if we looked for markers in the poop like caffeine and Tylenol or ibuprofen, that could tell us that wastewater, either untreated or insufficiently treated, was getting into that system, which could help locate the source and cap it off. We talked about monitoring for circular systems, pesticides and their possible effects on disease prions. Pesticides can also input heavy metals into systems. Pharmaceuticals tend to be of low persistence, but with continual inputs. So finding realistic ways to reduce or eliminate input can be an effective response. But for pesticides, heavy metals and PFAS are all of which have long-term persistence. Harvesting and subsistence practices at various sites could be disrupted if concerning levels of exposure are found in association with a particular type of contaminant and practice. Pharmaceuticals tend to be of low persistence, but with continual inputs. So finding realistic ways to reduce or eliminate input can be an effective response. Photo description. Souta calling last and the working dog Kenny posing for the camera at the end of a silver boat. Kenny is wearing black shoes and smiling at the edge of the boat. Souta is standing beside the boat. Sutaki and Kenny, in Blackfoot, which means rain woman and the one who wears fabulous necklaces, continue training with Amanda and team from Working Dogs for Conservation. Shout out to Missoula Gull Boats and RV for allowing us to train on their boats and keeping our waters clean by supporting invasive mussel prevention efforts. Next photo. A stream with grass on either side and a hill on the right. A train bridge crossing over the stream, with a train passing by with cargo. Adopt me. Frost has decided to hang up his working hat and is officially on the lookout for a fun, active pet home. That's right, folks. This goofy 5-year-old Springer Spaniel mix is up for adoption. Here at Working Dogs for Conservation, adopting out our working dogs is something we take seriously. We always put their well-being first and listen when they tell us they're ready for a new chapter. Next picture. Working dog Frost and trainer are standing on the slope of a gray rocky mountain. Frost has made great strides in protecting wildlife and wild places throughout his career. And while he's loved every project he's worked on, we feel he would thrive in an environment that could give him more of that one-on-one attention he deserves. This smart boy thrives on puzzles, games, and soaking up as much attention as possible. He's got solid obedience skills under his belt and, if we do say so ourselves, comes with a pretty impressive passive indication. For more information on Frost, please check out Working Dogs for Conservation's Facebook post or email foster@wd4c.org and Paige, Paige, at wd4c.org. Page 4. Fall blue corn harvest at the Beaver Lodge Food Forest property. First Three Sisters garden planted in the area in over 100 years. Featured picture. A hand holding a braid with several cobs of fall blue corn, with the forest in the background. Next picture. A forest and several trees in the fall with foliage, with logs and leaves piled all over the ground. TEK-based solutions is key strategy in addressing invasive species and climate at Food Forest. Written by Thea Goenz, Kenneth Cook, Food Forest Director and Artist. Indigenous Vision wants to thank our first Morningstar donor, Phyllis Rodriguez. Phyllis has donated 24 acres and $10,000 to the success of the Food Forest. The property is located in Sullivan County, New York State, on southern Onondaga Land, where Kenneth's ancestors have been living from the land for generations, among Delaware and Lenape, just 80 miles west of New York City. Indigenous Vision is seeking partners to continue cleaning and developing healthy land and food systems. In addition to the Food Forest, the property is welcoming nearby universities and research organizations to partner in implementing traditional ecological knowledge and native-led research. We are so grateful the stars aligned, and Kenneth is able to assist us as director of the Beaver Lodge Food Forest. Kenneth shared his Food Forest journey thus far on the next 2 pages. Page 5. Over the last 2 years, I have been cultivating my seed stock, working to build strong genetics of what will be growing on the property. We now have over 200 pawpaw trees that will be ready to plant next year, and working on having hundreds of other fruiting trees ready for planting as well. I rented machines to help remove invasives and the excavation and removal of abandoned structures and landfill sites. Some of the sites had over 10 feet of burned plastics, discarded antifreeze, jugs of oil, and various other volatile compounds. These sites will need extensive bioremediation. After treating the soil with liquid amendments and covering it with organic compost, I will be planting the sites with sunflowers that will help absorb harmful metals in the soil. Then we will cover various sites with oyster mushrooms that will help break down other contaminants leaching away from the sites. It has been a very laborious, intensive endeavor removing invasives and tending to the many ash trees affected from the emerald ash border beetle. We have also been thinning down many areas to open up space for the larger, stronger trees to thrive while strategizing how we deal with the lichen that has infected a large part of our forests. After spending time on the property observing the water table shifts, flooding areas, and sampling soils, I have decided which spaces will be more suitable for orchids and building future structures. I am working to get a team of horses to begin creating access points and clearing garden sites with low environmental impact to the eastern side of the property, located on the other side of the water. The western section of the property, located at the roadside, has been cleared out for plans of installing a solar system and large greenhouse space to be utilized as our own nursery. This space will also be used as a sawmill with solar kiln to begin drying our own building materials. Since I have not had the funds to build an adequate living structure on the property, I have had to build relationships with other organizations in the area to use their greenhouses as nurseries for the time being. Over the last 2 years, members from Fallsburg Future, Fairview Gardens, Mushrooms New York City, and other community members and I have been monitoring and documenting environmental risk factors throughout the Catskill region. We have found multiple wastewater discharge stations from campsites and housing developments. These sites are dumping large amounts of water treatment chemicals into clean water sources. Multiple sites have been found with broken sewage systems that are dumping raw sewage into the main aquifers as well. Working together, we are pushing for the DEC to make a formal assessment of the water table. Picture featuring Thea Goins, Kenneth Cook, Onondaga, Beaver Lodge Forest Director and Caretaker. Standing with the forest in the background, his hair braided, white shirt and a red tie. The aquifer in the area has not had a formal assessment done since the 1980s. We strongly feel there is an immediate need for the government to step in and stop this precious resource from being destroyed forever. The entire ecosystem of the area is under threat from disastrous overdevelopment. Clearly, the town is lacking basic infrastructure, which should cause an immediate halt to new multiple-family home building projects that overexert the already overcapacity sewage and water systems. Sadly, the town zoning boards have approved the construction of more developments that will destroy one of the last remaining clean aquifers on Earth. During the heavy population influx from May through August, the town's infrastructure has failed to provide adequate resources to the community. Due to this, I was forced to withdraw my original intention of running electricity to the property and instead decided we would need to utilize solar. Also, I may need to invest in a water transportation vehicle to ensure the crops will have adequate water supply since the wells run completely dry during the tourist season, our hottest months of the year, and the creeks are full of harmful water treatment chemicals and raw sewage. Page 6. Photo featuring a forest with several trees and a small creek running through the trees. The leaves on the trees are yellow and orange and green. The fall foliage is showing. On a more positive note, over the last 2 years, I worked as a vendor selling produce at farmers markets in the region. This has allowed me to meet and build relationships with each producer in the region and to speak with community members. Myself and other producers are creating a bi-regional storehouse group. This group meets weekly with the main purpose to create a large-scale support system for producers and distributors. Our reach now extends from New York City to Canada. Our work focuses on creating communication between farmers so we can share knowledge, seeds, information, and resources. This helps to create the space for discussing the challenges small family farms and large-scale operations face. Then we can discuss and strategize how we can work together to build these systems up for us to create a strong network of nutrient-dense food. Some of the producers joining this group are Mushrooms New York City Co-op, Fairview Gardens, Seed Song Farm, Smiling Hogheads, Sun Sprouts Organics, Growing Roots, Sky Woman Farm, and many others. My work has evolved to build food systems for all, not just Indigenous people. Another organization we will be collaborating with is Sky Woman Forever Farm, located 90 miles north of the property. They have a 60-acre berry farm they are converting into an organic farm. They also have a longhouse structure that is halfway completed. We are hoping we can gather a workforce to help them complete their structure, and then come to the property in Woodridge to help build our longhouse after. We are planning to host groups of people to both of our properties in conjunction to lead large language immersion programs in Haudenosaunee dialects and teaching traditional ecological knowledge. I also serve on the board of a nonprofit organization known as the Traditional Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Healing. We focus on building support systems and training programs for midwives and doulas. The group also holds a property of 60 acres in Ithaca in which we plan to turn into a food forest as well. Working together with various organizations, we believe we will be able to truly grow enough food to support large communities in the future. We are all working together to rebuild all of our traditional support systems. The organization known as Circle of Stones is a local group of Sullivan County that asked me to serve as a board member. This group is focused on documenting and protecting the stone mound and wall structures throughout the region. We have located and documented over 600 stone mound and serpent wall structures in the area. Horned serpents are held in a very high regard in Haudenosaunee culture, and various serpent stone structures have been found throughout this entire area. It's been very exciting to locate and reconnect with these sites. I have friends who are Nipmuc currently living to the east in Massachusetts who are reporting they also have hundreds of these stone structures there as well. We have found that many of these stone structures are landmarks identifying water sources. Some have alignments with winter and summer solstices. I would like to just say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come to these lands that my ancestors walked and tended. Thank you for the chance to bring our people back to these beautiful spaces. Follow Thea Goins on Instagram at THAE_A_GHO_WENS. Email onondagaoriginal2, that's the number 2, @gmail.com. Page 7. Uncover history through the Blackfoot Place Map. Notes from the Field by Souta Callinglast. Featured image of the Blackfoot Place Map. A map with a black border featuring several orange spots or points across the states of Montana, the province of Alberta, and British Columbia. The area of traditional Blackfoot territory. Classroom posters of the current map available for schools and offices for display. The Blackfoot Place Map project continues to be a digital container for the preservation of family knowledge, culture, and history. All are invited to contribute to the map by creating their own layer of historical family sites, stories, or any other place that is significant. The process is as easy as using a smartphone to locate the longitude and latitude of the significant place and transferring the information to our form on the IV website. Citizen scientists are more than welcome to participate as authors to document anything from hazardous waste, abandoned mines, hate crimes, climate change impacts, missing or murdered Indigenous people, Native-owned businesses, massacre sites, battlefields, and so much more. All of this helps us know how land was managed as far back as 12,000 years ago with climate data and stores of survival strategy. And believe it or not, this all contributes to our effort to create the model for the world's first culturally appropriate habitat and watershed assessment tool. Ivy is also working with other Indigenous organizations to expand the map and keep information centralized and user-friendly. Featured photo, a Bear Gulch pictograph that inspired archaeologist art by Kaiser. Pictographs on the side of a rock. The summers ended and fall site visits were stunning in all their seasonal glory. The places, journey there, the people assisting, and the pictographs and rock structures themselves were powerful in connecting the purpose of place, the stories of who was there, and the stories they left echoing across the land. The sites visited include Alberta's Tabor Child Site, Bear Gulch Pictographs, Billings Pictograph Cave State Park, the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, and several unprotected rural petroglyphs, pictograph caves, cairns, and fasting shelters throughout Wyoming and in the mountains throughout Montana and Idaho. Each site was a very loud reminder that the Blackfoot people are very, very old and spent time throughout the mountains, living, hunting, and journeying to areas that might seem unfathomable to some. Our stories of place and the length of that memory certainly doesn't support the construct of academia and Western thoughts on human origins and migration, the dispossession through disconnection of ancestral populations and the current native nations, and the purposeful and continued mystifying of the narrative, I believe, is a true injustice to humanity. My focus this season is in preparation for the cultivation of stories and exhibits for the Bear Gulch Pictograph Visitor Center. This included going out to visit all accessible heavy shield pictographs I could find or was directed to. But how do heavy shield pictographs relate to water and habitat management? Well, following these shields and looking at different associated art like notches or the coup and war stories around them helped to tell the story. I also hiked up to several ridges and summits over the past few months, locating cairns and fasting shelters. They too are strategically placed across the landscape. There are a few different kinds as well. Ones for spiritual practices, still continued today by many tribal nations, and cairns used for what I dubbed as surveillance locations. Usually there are high-ridge teepee rings nearby. If you hike with me, you will see me get energized with my third wind after a 6-mile hike in. The journey in is always a humbling experience in the mountain's purpose and power. And after a tough climb, and putting some tobacco down, I turn around to take in the view. My training in reading the land is helping me see the landscape more clearly. It's as if my blood knows the soil I stand on, and the next steps needed to drive animals in or people out. Page 8. The entire page is an image. It is a map including Canada and the U.S., where Blackfoot Traditional Territory is, with several pictures from different significant sites depicting pictographs, petroforms, heavy shields, medicine wheels, creeks, and other items, with a text box inserted. Photo 1. Last photo of Blackfeet Bear Braves taken in Browning, Montana, early 1900s before the society was dissolved and members were absorbed into other societies that are still in existence and practicing today. Photo 2. The same heavy shield pictograph in Bear Gulch is also at Billings Pictograph Site Cave. These bear braves or heavy shields traveled to New Mexico and Moab area. See exact same shield designs and regalia. Moab is where Photo 3, the All-American man, causes a lot of controversy and head-scratching, but is similar to known Blackfeet Bear Braves and the pictograph found in Billings. Pictograph Cave State Park, where art has been confirmed Blackfoot. Photo 4 is the Blackfeet Bear Brave shield that ended up in a Kansas auction. Photo 5, the Bighorn medicine wheels, bearing resemblance to the fasting shelters, found in western Montana and Idaho and near the current Blackfeet Reservation. Photo 6, a Medicine Man Falls, where pictographs echo rock effigies aligning to the Big Lake story of a week-long battle between Crows and Blackfeet along the Sun River. Photo 7, resting site of the Tabor Child, found by Stalker and dated to 41,000 years old. This almost career-ending date was sent back and revised to 23,000 plus years old. Page 9. Bear Gulch Visitor Center celebration opening for June 2025. Featuring a picture of a flyer that says save the date, grand opening, Bear Gulch Pictograph Visitor Center, showing bear braves and their heavy shields, with a teepee on the side. June 14, 2025, located at 2749 Fairview Road, Forest Grove, Montana, zip code 59441. Second picture features the Bear Gulch Trail to 5,000 pictographs, featuring the land, the gulch, and the sky with clouds. Over the summer, Ivy was notified of a $15,000 grant from the Montana Department of Commerce for the grand opening celebration of the Bear Gulch Pictograph Visitor Center. Funds, to be released after the event, are earmarked for the stage, PA system, portable restrooms, event tent, a billboard, and a street banner. Additional funds are needed for finishing the visitor center, creation of exhibits and art, signage, steel staircase, and trails. Exhibits will feature a bear brave, heavy shields, 3D landscapes, and more. Sponsors will be featured on all communications as pivotal partners and commemorated in a stone walkway. Their help is breathing life back into old places for new generations. This center will focus on the Blackfoot narrative of the pictographs, roasting pits, teepee rings, and medicine wheel found in the area. The Bear Gulch pictographs are located 17 miles south of Lewistown, in central Montana. This new visitor center will serve as a Blackfoot-led collaboration to preserve and encourage community members to engage and learn on the land. This historical center would not be possible without Marcy Algren, Maggie Johnston-Rucht, Mike Brucehead, Joe Wagner, Christine Falcon, and Jesse DeRossier, who have contributed through site knowledge, putting up the first teepees, and being a part of the opening celebration planning and event. This summer, Blackfoot women made a historic return to the area putting up the first lodge in over 100 years. The incredible Macy saved the day with her cowgirl knot skills, and she spent over 20 years doing tours for local schools, protecting the site, and working on its National Historic Registration. Her mother noticed the impact of settler signatures over the pictographs and put a stop to the practice. Macy says the work is done for very simple reasons. Quote, "I don't want history lost, no matter who we are or where we come from, and if we can document and share, some will always live on. I just love being a part of it. There is such a vast learning potential from this now and for the future." End quote. Support cultural conservation and the Visitor Center grand opening celebration. Enter to win the first teepee setup at Bear Gulch in over 100 years. A QR code is featured with the text underneath, scan to enter raffle, or visit. Link to visit the raffle. You can find the link at indigenousvision.org. Photo featuring Souta calling last with a teepee in the background on vast grassy land. Page 10. Beading circles, self-defense, ribbon skirt workshops, and boarding school remembrance. Photo featuring 2 women and a child beading in a circle with supplies around them. On September 30th, the city of Las Vegas held its first ever boarding school remembrance event at the College of Southern Nevada, where close to 200 attended to show their respect and honor families who attended the Stewart Boarding School in Nevada and others. Survivors from the surrounding Yavapai and Paiute nations attended with family members to share their stories and to honor and remember those who did not survive. Melissa Spence served as the MC of the historical event in collaboration with the Changing Spirits nonprofit, who hosted a fashion show during the event. Photo featuring models and descendants of boarding school survivors, with Elder Yvonne, survivor from the Northern Cheyenne Nation. The picture features several people, including children, women, men, and Two-Spirit. Elder is sitting on a chair with a child. Ivy took part in several workshops and events in and around the Las Vegas, Southern Paiute lands. We sponsored a few beading workshops, open to community members, to learn beginning beading techniques from local experienced beaders who are from the Navajo and Northern Cheyenne nations. These events are intimate to give each participant the required attention to begin a practice of beading no matter what level, and they are hosted in a potluck style, sharing different dishes from the organizers. Celebrating our self-defense warrior. A photo featuring several young people in Taekwondo uniform standing against a mirror. Self-defense news. Taya Redshirt, Dene, and Blackfeet from Idaho receives her red tips after 2 months of very hard work. She now prepares for graduation and a belt ceremony. We are all so proud of you, Taya. Your discipline is inspiring. Photo featuring the logo for the MMIW Warriors Project with Ribbon Kicking Girl, www.indigenousvision.org. Page 11. Community outreach and development of a webinar series on the Yavapai-Apache Nation Environmental Code, written by Elaine Wilson, CPM. Photo features a drawing of the desert landscape featuring saguaro, sunshine, rock formations, and various plants. Community environmental education and outreach. This past summer, the Yavapai-Apache Nation, YAN, Environmental Protection Department, EPD, partnered with the Indigenous Vision team, who offered professional and technical services to the YAN EPD. Souta Callinglast, who is Blackfeet in blood, Executive Director of Indigenous Vision, and Elaine Wilson, Dene, Project Consultant, worked in collaboration with the YAN EPD staff to conduct 4 community outreach meetings throughout the reservation. The first outreach project was the Cash for Clunkers project, also known as the Inoperable Vehicle Removal Project. The project's goals were to provide awareness to all community members about the 2019 enacted Yavapai-Apache Nation Environmental Code and to encourage community members that have inoperable vehicles to voluntarily give up their inoperable junk vehicle in exchange for a cash payment of $250. The first 2 community meetings were held Friday and Saturday, June 21st and June 22nd, 2024, at the Middle Verde Council Chambers, Arizona, and Camp Verde EPD Office, Arizona, respectively. The meetings were well attended by community members, and many of them indicated they enjoyed the events, which included a meal, raffle prizes, gift cards, and a grand prize of a composting machine at each event. Page 12. Each outreach meeting included a presentation by Souta and Elaine. The team's presentation covered the following high-level topics: Keep community clean and safe. Pride in the homeland. Why should we keep our homeland clean and safe? Health and safety of the community. Potential dangers and potential contamination. Ways to prevent contamination by removing the inoperable vehicle. Title 4, Public Nuisance, otherwise known as Keep Our Neighborhoods Clean and Safe. Drought conditions and watering notices. Development of a webinar series on the Yavapai-Apache Nation Environmental Code. The second outreach project of the summer included the development of a webinar series on the Yavapai-Apache Nation's Environmental Code. This project was conducted by Souta and Melissa Spence, Anishinaabe-Ojibwe Nation, media, MMIW director and podcast producer. Melissa's work on the webinar series is impressive, and Yan EPD will use the webinar series as a tool for long-term outreach and education to the Yan community. The webinar series consists of 10 completed webinars, which include 120 slides and a 22-page script. The webinar series will provide outreach and education to all community members and Yan employees about the 2019 enacted Yavapai-Apache Nation's Environmental Code and an overview of the various titles within the code. This work was such a joy to be a part of. Thank you to the IV team for delivering excellence, to the Yan Tribal Council and Environmental Protection Department for monumental environmental management, and to the community for showing up and caring about their lands. Next, the Environmental Department and IV will host staff training and an in-person community watershed educational event for people within the Yavapai-Apache Nation at the Environmental Protection Conference Room, at a culturally related site, and at a Verde River access point. We invite the community members, including youth, to participate in the custom-made watershed and water quality activities for the Verde River and learn more about climate impacts and environmental stressors' impact on cultural use species and harvesting practices. 4 photographs. Photo 1. A classroom setting where Elaine is at the front of the classroom in front of Yavapai-Apache Nation community members who are seated in chairs. She is presenting. Second photo. More community members inside of a boardroom. Some are seated in chairs and some children are walking around. There is a presentation on the screen. Third photo. Community members seated at a table. Fourth photo. More community members seated at various tables in a room. Page 13. Funding, IV Media, Cultural Humility. Photo. Indigenous Vision podcast cover image featuring Souta with a microphone and Melissa Spence, standing in front of a valley. IV Podcasts. IV continues to release podcasts, sharing our stories, events, perspectives, goals, and real-life observations. We recently released our 130th episode, and we are determined to continue to share what the organization is working on in future episodes. IV Music is a current reflection of the Indigenous music community from right across the continent, sharing artists, their stories, and industry events like music gatherings, award shows, and workshops. Cultural Humility. We wrapped up our October 2024 cohort with another diverse group of changemakers committed to bringing positive organizational change through our Train the Trainer sessions. We have already scheduled 2 virtual trainings for 2025 with dates in February and May. Thank you to our Sweetgrass donors, anonymous donations in the name of Alida Montiel, Esther Corbett, and to Kit Livingston for helping get the work done and provide space for TEK and culture to happen. We've raised $16,000 towards cultural conservation efforts that include projects like the Blackfoot Place Map, Food Forest, Bear Gulch, and land acquisition. Please see our current GoFundMe and TP raffle. Photo featuring a sketch of Sweetgrass with the text, Sweetgrass donor, $6,000 to $10,000. Sweetgrass donors assist in soothing the aches and bring energy and healing to the community. Next image features a sketch of Sage with the text, Sage donor, $5 to $500. Sage donors provide the essence of community power from the ground up. Next image, featuring a sketch of Bear Root, with the text, Bear Root donor, $600 to $5,000. Bear Root donors are the members of our community providing good medicine to these efforts. Next photo, a sketch of a Morning Star, with the text, Morning Star donor, $20,000 plus. Morning Star donors help us bring a new and different day to the community. Next photo, a sketch of Sweet Pine, with the text, Sweet Pine donor, $11,000 to $20,000. Sweet Pine donors help protect and clarify efforts. Finding support. Fundraising continues through our various platforms. We recently introduced the IV donation tiers ranging from $5, a Sage donor tier, to our $20,000 plus Morningstar tier. Additionally, we are always looking for land to implement cultural and environmental activities. If you want to donate land in full or access, we would love to partner with you. On October 22nd, Souta took part in the Tides Pitch competition, where she had 5 minutes to present the IV projects to various potential funders. Her incredible pitch landed her in second place overall in the competition of almost 20 organizations nationwide, with a prize of $1,500. Ivy once again is grateful and honored to have the Tides Foundation funding of $100,000 for the next year. We were also awarded $10,000 from Grantmakers for Girls of Color, $20,000 from Seventh Generation, Annenberg Foundation $25,000, Red Empress Foundation $27,000, and the Share Fund $25,000. Page 14. Journey into 2025 with us. Photo featuring the Indigenous Vision logo with the text Indigenous Vision, an educational nonprofit, www.indigenousvision.org. Logo features a beaver next to a stream next to grassy land with trees, mountains, and the sky. 2024-2025 calendar. Indigenous Vision will be celebrating its 10th year anniversary. June 11, 2015 is the official date we were established. We would like to commemorate this incredible achievement and invite you to celebrate in person with us at the Bear Gulch Grand Opening Celebration. November 19th guest lecture, Fairfield, Connecticut Environmental Ethics class visit. Ivy board meeting before the holidays. We'd love to meet and strategize all the great projects for 2025. Blackfeet community partner meetings to present, translate, and transfer data from environmental stressor and contamination project lab results for mink and otter poo that was sampled for heavy metals, PFAs, pharmaceuticals, and pesticides. Souta ends participation in the Center of Disease Control Research Policy and Institute International Panel of Experts on Chronic Wasting Disease, co-author report released. Souta continues attending search and rescue training and seeking funding in the development of an emergency response team. Preparation and writing to publish environmental stressor and contaminant paper. Outreach that EPA, QAP, and TEK is available to replicate environmental monitoring efforts. This winter, Souta is creating life-size bear braves, heavy shields, a 3D topographic, and event postcards that will be featured in the exhibits at the new Bear Gulch Pictograph Visitor Center. We're excited for the grand opening June 14, 2025. We have 2 cultural humility trainings scheduled for February and May of 2025. Thank you and best of luck in your endeavors to the October 2024 cohort. Ivy continues planning and organizing a women's gathering on the summer solstice at Flathead Lake, Montana. This event is in lieu of the MMIW Warriors and Life Spa, which we are seeking funding support and/or hosts for these events. The Ivy website will be revamped and simplified over the next 2 months. Tribal Nation and Municipality contracted environmental outreach and educational work. Thank you, partners. Donation campaign for collecting food, shawls, ribbon skirts, moccasins, smudge boxes, and blankets. These donations are for the Montana Blackfeet foster kids, who will be invited and introduced to Akokatsin. We are also asking for host families to volunteer if needed. End of newsletter.